the ahkam and the rulings that pertains to the uh, the prerequisites of salah. And we were talking about wiping yesterday, and we were talking about the injury that someone has within his body. Um, um, if someone has to wear a cast, if there is something that would prevent someone from actually making a full wudu of washing. So it could be the secondary, the second in line would be wiping with water. And then third in line would be if water was not to be used, then tayammum is to replace it. And we have said that there should not be a mix between wudu and tayammum at the same time, except with some of the opinion of the Shafi'i school. Today is pertaining more to the fitrah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created our sisters with, and that is the monthly cycle that comes and disrupt their daily activity and daily work, daily activity from a worship point of view, that is, daily worship activities. So that is something that we're going to cover because it pertains also to the tahara and the purity that a woman should have, and the state that she should be in before actually considering to enter into the salah. So for the menstruation, it really refers to that's like the definition of what we really define a period, the Shari'i period, the Islamic definition of menstruation, the period that a woman would have that would stop her from praying. So in a simple definition, it would be the discharge of blood during a woman's particular state of health, not from giving birth or breaking the hymen, but rather it is the blood that comes every month. So it's not because of giving birth or because of breaking the hymen and what have you, but rather it's her monthly period. Second, the blood that is discharged from the female during her monthly cycle upon reaching the age of puberty. That is also considered to be the hayd. Now, there is no specification according to the Islamic law regarding the minimal or maximal amount of blood. So the issue of the amount of blood has nothing to do with the definition of a woman being on her period. So we are not going to define that, if it's a lot of blood, then it's period. If it's not a lot of blood, then it's not period. The amount of blood, because it absolutely varies between women, and it's all about each body is different than the other and reacts differently to the monthly cycle. So that is for sure. That's agreed upon among the scholars. They do not take the amount of blood as a consideration, whether it is hayd or not. So the Shari'i term that I want you to learn, like you have learned janaba, you have learned, tayammum, you have learned qiyas, and all these terminologies that we have talked about. So we are going to learn today the Shari'i term of menstruation, and that is al-hayd. Al-hayd. So that's the blood that actually we are defining now. There is no specification according to the Islamic law regarding the minimal, maximum, or maximal amount of blood. Those specifications are dependent upon each woman's cycle. So that's one thing that we need to learn. The length of menstrual cycle. Muslim jurists have differed regarding the duration of the menstrual cycle. So the disagreement is about the how many days, not about the concept itself, not about the definition of the blood itself, but it's like how many days. So because they differed, they differed into the following. First opinion says that there is no minimum length. There is just no minimum length to the duration of the period. It could be 1 day, 2 days. It could be uh, uh, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but I have no minimum. Uh, Not 3 weeks, I'm sorry, I take this back because there is the maximum. The minimum, we're talking about only the minimum now. So the maximum, they did put a cap to it because that would really ruins a woman's life if they are going to put no cap to a monthly cycle. But talking about the minimum, like if a woman were to have her period starts today, so and then all of a sudden stops tomorrow. Is that is she okay to go back to pray? The answer is absolutely yes. So they agreed upon that there is no minimal. It all depends. So there is no issue with them. 1 day, 1 day. Next day she clears, khalas, she goes back to normal worship activities. Second opinion, the Hanafi, they say no, 1 day and then she goes back. Most likely that is, going to be a spotting, but it's really spotting part of the hayd of the menstruation itself. So, but it's not really coming heavy all at once. So she should not go back to prayer. So the Hanafi would put a minimum of 3 days. And they say if it starts, then it should go for 3 days. She should wait for 3 days, and then if it's clear, khalas, she goes back to normal worship activities. So 3 days and nights up to a maximum of 10 days. So they put the minimum to go for up to 3 days, and the maximum is 10 days. So after 10 days, if she's not clear and she still sees spotting, they consider this, and this is another terminology, and you need to learn, they consider it to be istihada. So the first one, the blood that stops a woman from praying, is called dam al-hayd, the blood of al-hayd. But then the spotting that comes after 10 days, according to the Hanafi school, is what they call istihada. Then they bring back the woman to do her activities, even with having the spotting on. But rather, they just ask her just to take a bath, and then before every prayer, that she would have to change her clothes, that is the underwear, that is, and then also starts the prayer with a fresh wudu. So she cannot use one wudu for multiple prayers. The Shafi'i opinion and the Hanbali, they say 1 day and night. So it's 24 hours, like a day and a night, 24 hours. That is, they consider that to be a minimum, to up to a maximum of 15 days. So they have actually extended and stretched the maximum duration of a period up to 15 days. So 5 days more than the Hanafi school. What about the 1 day, the 1 day minimum? What does that mean? Like when they say 24 hours, yani why, what's the difference between this opinion and the first opinion that says no minimum length at all? The minority opinion that says no minimum is just no minimum. Basically, the period comes now, she stops, the period clears, she goes back. It doesn't matter, there is no minimum, so she can stop and come back in the same day. However, the third opinion, this says no, there has to be a minimum. So it's 24 hours, meaning that if the period starts this morning and then it clears at Asr time today, same day, and the woman knows her body and she knows that it's clear, khalas, it's not going to come back. That's the way her body is. The period just comes for a few hours and then it just clears after 6, 8 hours, whatever. Then the third opinion says it doesn't matter. Even if she clears after 6, 8 hours, that day is not counted. That day, the salah there is no salah. Even if she clears, she just cannot take a bath and starts praying. No. If it's fasting like Ramadan, she did break the day. Like today, let's say she had her suhoor, she had the niyyah and everything. 8 o'clock in the morning, she realizes that her period started. So she quits the fasting. Khalas. She knows that she's going to have to make up that day. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, she clears. So she cannot uh, um, just just go back. Well, if some a question might come, what if she didn't eat anything in the morning? La, the answer is no, because khalas, at 8 o'clock in the morning when the period came, the intention was that she broke her fast. That's it. That's when it comes to pertaining to the fasting. But when it pertains to the prayer, the minimum, the no minimum, they would tell, yeah, if it's clear, khalas, clear at Asr time, then she needs to pray Asr, Maghrib, and Isha and just move on. But the opinion with 24 hours minimum, that no, she should not bother and pray. She has to wait that 24 hours to make sure that it clears. Which opinion, honestly, this is all based on judgments. There is really no absolute clarity into the detail. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really brought the details of everything, then we would have like encyclopedias of books that we have to review and to study and to learn and to memorize, and it would have been really, really difficult, and it's a burden. That's why these were just flexible, left upon people to have their best judgment, and it helps a lot regionally. Some people, احنا here in the United States, we are so diverse, so we come from all walks of life, but the vast majority of Muslims around the globe, they live in specified regions, so they have the same culture, same things. So maybe women in a specific region would have about the same culture when it comes to their monthly cycle. If the atmosphere is too hot, it's different than atmosphere and the environment or the weather being too cold. So their body reacts to the weather around them and to the circumstances of the culture that they live in. But that pertains to most of women in that society. So it comes, this is why some of regions, they adopt one specific opinion and fiqh, because it's way, way more inconvenient for them to adopt that fiqh because of the region that they are in. Minimal state of purification. So minimum duration that separates two cycles. So now we want to talk about the cap that we talked about, 10 days and 15 days. There has to be a cap where you have to say, khalas, we have to end between to realize what's the time between two periods then, because many rulings pertain to that. So that is the majority opinion, says 15 days with no limit for maximum. طيب. The Hanbali school, that's the second opinion, that's not the majority. They say 13 days with no limit for maximum. So what that means is basically they have stretched, the difference is basically a few days. They have just stretched the days a little bit more. We talked about the minimum days and the maximum between 10 days, 13 days, 15 days, but then there has to be stop. And the time between the two periods is where that school of thought adopts the maximum days. So for example, the majority says 15 days. So an example, a woman starts her period today, right? And she's among those women that have heavy periods and they go for a long period of time. So it goes as usual. She's so used to it being like 10 days or 12 days, 13 days. She's so used to it. It's not going to ever be like less than 10 days. So she comfortably stops the prayer and whatever. At 13 days now, it becomes for her, I'm not sure if this is, am I clearing, I'm not clearing, whatever. No, I think this is still hayd. At 15 days, she stops. That's it, because she's taking the opinion of the maximum of 15 days. And whatever comes after is considered to be istihada, spotting, that she will not consider it to be dam and the blood of a hayd. So she will start her prayer with the conditions that I told you, that she would make wudu at every prayer, fresh wudu. Now, what means by maximum, and there is no limit for maximum, that all agree, what that means, there is no maximum of to say, okay, so there is maximum for the period, but there is no maximum for being out of period. I hope that I'm making it clear, because, for my dear sisters, this is the major confusion. That's why when you look up, online, and you look up all the fatwa and verdict, that's why you get very confused, because of all these things, and you're not really well grasped on the terminologies. So now you know the terminology of minimum and maximum pertaining to the period cycle itself, not the clearance, not when she's clear, but pertaining to the cycle of blood itself. You know that the difference of opinion about minimum, and you know the difference of opinion about maximum. So you have two brackets now that you can work with when it comes to the difference of opinion of scholars. Now, when you read and no limit for maximum, what does that mean? Let's continue with our example. Same woman that had her period started today. After 15 days, she clears, but she actually doesn't really clear, but she just takes the opinion, I'm just going to stop at 15. That's maximum. I'm not going. And that's the right thing, just because she's taking the maximum opinion. Now she goes into istihada. A few days later, she's still doing some spotting. She just continues. Ba'deen, she clears. It goes for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and she still clears. She doesn't get her period. We have no maximum for clearance. We have no maximum for being out of the state of menstruation. So yes, a woman can have her period stops for some biological things happening to her body for many months. There is no opinion in our deen that says, no, that's way too much. If that happens, then she has to estimate every 40 days. No, we don't have that. So please, if that's not clear, make sure that you ask a question to clear that. So again, minimum, maximum pertains only to the cycle, blood cycle. Outside of the menstruation, when it comes to clearance, when a woman is out of her period, there is no minimum for tahara, being pure, and there is no maximum period for being pure in a state that is like cleared with no period. There is no maximum. Yes, she can go for years with having no period, years, and she just needs to act normally, and that's all agreed upon. There is no single scholar that comes, no, she can't go for years, she can't go for a few months without stopping. She has to estimate that. We don't have that. Note bleeding that continues past the maximum duration of menstruation is classified as prolonged blood flow. That's the istihada that we talked about. So inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to stop because this is all details. Of course, I have, it's just to give you a quick reference of what tomorrow will be. So we're gonna tomorrow cover inshallah ta'ala the post childbirth bleeding that comes after delivering a baby, after birth. So that we're going to define that, and we're going to talk about the maximum duration of post-child. This is way easier than the two. So tomorrow we will finish it really quick, inshallah ta'ala. And then the last one would be this, which is the permissible acts during the menses and the post childbirth bleeding. What are some acts that in general were permissible to a woman, and now because she's on her period, those permissible acts become impermissible? So we want to learn those inshallah ta'ala tomorrow with the difference of opinions. Jazakumullah khair wa barakallah fikum today for tuning in. May Allah reward you for your commitment and your dedication. So, inshallah ta'ala, for now, I have, let's see, inshallah. Okay, so just, I'm going to wait, inshallah, for your questions if you have questions. I think I just got one now, inshallah. Again, a reminder for my dear sisters, if your question is a little bit complicated, you can always reach out privately. But I guess this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed upon us. There is really no shame. We should not have hesitation. This is subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala written upon you, and this is something inshallah to be proud of. And alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, it is the ajr and the reward that you take, whether you have it or you don't have it, it's all khairan, alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So again, I definitely I'm very big on privacy. So if you to ask any questions, you can send it anonymous. You can privately contact whatever you feel comfortable with. You're all good, inshallah. Now the question that I have, some people say that the use of tampons or menstrual cups is haram. Is it? I'm asking for married women. So I'm glad that you I think if I'm not mistaken, I'm not very well versed into the women's culture, but from an Islamic point of view, there is no dalil that says using any kind, because tampons is no difference than the other type of cloth that women's in the previous ages, in the old days, used to have. I think your question answers the cultural perception of why some people say it's haram. I think for unmarried girls, they are very much afraid that using all these type of materials might risk the fact that culturally the girl is not going to be considered a virgin anymore. And there are many regions around the globe that if that the case with their culture, the girl would be really outcasted, and she will be in a very deep trouble. So by all means, in such societies, it's not haram because it's haram. It's not haram because Allah made it haram. It's just we are going to say that we do not recommend it at all, because that might cause other harm. Now, for a married woman, there is nothing that would say, unless again we're doing analogy to the same thing with a virgin girl, unless using those type of materials do cause some other harm. As I said, I'm not really well versed into it, but if they do cause some other harm, and the harm could be physically pertaining to the woman's body, or it could be something that relates with her relationship with her husband, then maybe those who are saying it's haram, they're saying haram from a point of that it is not really recommended, because it helps in one area, but it damages in many other areas. And that would be something that we would heavily discuss, consider, that is that we don't want something that would help, in one area and damages in other areas. Okay, the other questions that I have is that if a woman's cycle typically has spotting the first day and then clears, for 1 or 2 days, and then the regular flow starts. Are those two clear days in between considered part of the period? That's a very, very good question. And to be honest with you, that's one of the most common questions that we receive into the Imam's office from our sisters, because this is kind of, it puts her in a very difficult situation, to be honest with you. It is a situation where she has no idea what to do in those 2 days or those 3 days. طب يعني I'm clear, what do I do? So especially like يعني my dear sisters who go on Hajj and Umrah, it just comes to kind of breaks their heart because they have no idea now. I have traveled all this journey, and now I'm stuck. I have no idea whether the spotting is because of, but that is a different rulings because of the travel. That travel, usually long travel, does change a woman's biological state. So it does really changes, and it really disrupt her regular monthly period. The answer for a woman in general that lives in her town and her city, and she knows her body, the answer is the woman is her best, or she is her best judge. It's not a scholar. It's not the local imam. It's not the top scholar on the face of the earth, because they do not know. But all they do is to give a formula. So the formula is as follow. If she knows her body, that this is the trend, every month she has spotting, then she clears for 2 days or 3 days, then the regular blood flow starts, then the spotting is considered to be hayd. It's considered to be menstruation blood. That's a period. So she stops from the day of spotting. And the 2, 3 days that she clears, she does not come back for prayer. She just assumes that she is on her period because she knows her body. That's the trend, that's regular. Sometimes it's 1 day, sometimes it's 2 days, sometimes it's 3 days, and then the blood flow just comes back. Now, that's the answer, and that's the formula. For a woman that goes on travel, that answer does not apply because the travel itself might have changed her, unless it's the same woman that has this trend and she travels and she has the exact same trend, then it gets treated the exact same answer. But if a woman doesn't have the trend of spotting, then clearing, then blood flow, and then all of a sudden happens when she traveled to Hajj or Umrah or to overseas or what have you, then that ruling does not apply. The ruling of spotting would just apply that 1 day. When she clears, then she goes back to her state of prayer and all the activities like relationship with her husband and what have you. Then the blood flow comes, that where it stops again, because that's not her trend. That just happened just because she traveled and there were a lot of biological changes to her body. That's the formula, and it gets applied depending on each woman's body, inshallah ta'ala. So that's just in general the answer for these. Now, the trickiest part, and I have to be honest with you, is really for our sisters who do not have a trend. That the problem, this is honestly, there is really no one set answer. So her body is not really consistent. Sometimes she has her heavy period from first minute, from first day. It just comes and the blood flow starts. That's regular. Sometimes she has spotting, and then the spotting doesn't stop. And then after a few days of spotting, she has a regular blood flow. And sometimes she has spotting, then she has clearance, and then the blood flow comes, and there is really no trend. And we have quite few good amount of sisters that they don't have regular periods. They have just very disrupted irregular every time they come, maybe because of changes that happens in their life, or that's the way their body is. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them. For these sisters, it would be a little bit more detailed and more difficult. We have to go a little bit more into the more of analogy and qiyas and what have you. So I would prefer not to go into more confusion, but I would say if any of my dear sisters on during class have such issues and problem, maybe we can just privately discuss that, inshallah. And if it's not you, or if it's not any of the sisters during the class, that would be definitely something very beneficial for you to learn it, so you can pass it on, maybe to your friends, to other women in community that they are you know them, and they're having this problem, and they are uh, they don't commit to these classes, so they don't know any better. Because knowing these rulings is very crucial, very important, especially with the relationship between a woman and her husband. Because if those 2 days that she's cleared, it is Islamically considered to be a hayd, and it's considered to be a period, then there should be no relationship. And we know that this is considered to be not something simple, it's not something easy. It is one of the major sins. So we should not really take this lightly. And that's why I love your dedications. And I truly, truly, the whole purpose of doing this and to examine you and put you with a test so you can review all these information, because I want you to be my students. I want you to be an advocates to others, because I can't reach to many people, but you can. Each one of you, inshallah ta'ala, can reach to many of of her circle, and her contacts as well. So alhamdulillah, yani you will be a knowledgeable person that is advocate in certain areas of the knowledge that you have dedicated and committed yourself to. So that would be great to benefit others who might have been falling into haram for many years, and they just don't know any better. Inshallah ta'ala ya Rabbi. So speaking of Hajj and Umrah, is it permissible to use birth control pills for the sole purpose of to make the for the sole purpose of to make the period not come, so that a woman can make Hajj, Umrah, or fast the entire month of Ramadan? So pertaining to Hajj and Umrah, the scholars have, this is of course the current scholars. Remember, classical fiqh, you open classical fiqh, you would not find this discussion. Why? Because that did not exist during the fourth, scholars' time, the birth control. So this would be discussed definitely nowadays with the contemporary scholars and fiqh and what have you, and they come to agree that when it comes to Hajj and Umrah, when I say agree, I'm talking about the majority, because it would be very, very difficult to have a fiqh ruling that is like with consensus. Very difficult, except for the major things. What do I mean by major things? There is no one that says, well, Salah is fard, and some will say Salah is not fard. We don't have that. There is actually no scholar that would say, well, when a woman is on her period, she should not stop. And another scholar would say, no, actually, she can pray. No, we don't have that. We have clear cut, rulings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it muhkamat, absolutely clear. It cannot be crossed and it cannot be disagreed upon. Now, the branches of fiqh, they're all disagreed upon because it's about judgment and what have you, to the best of their knowledge. Again, the regional issues and what pertains to that region and what have you. So when it comes to Hajj and Umrah, because they came to believe it's a one-time, it's a lifetime journey, they said they don't see any problem with a woman disrupting the regular pace of her monthly period for a sole purpose of attaining the ahkam and ruling of Hajj and Umrah. Now, the others that say no, they say no. But this is where you become a student of knowledge. This is how you become a faqih, where you derive ruling. So let's talk a little bit about those who say no. Why do you say no? They say because that's the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I said, yes. So what would a woman do then if she gets her period during her lifetime journey? The answer comes as a classical answer. She just needs to do exactly like any woman needs to do. She just needs to wait until she clears, and then she takes a bath, and there's the ghusl, and starts her Umrah and Hajj. Very easy to say. That's only for local women. But for a woman that has crossed the ocean to come to Hajj and Umrah, and she has international ticket and international flight that she needs to pertain to and go back with her group, and she just can't stay for 2 weeks until she clears, and then spend another 2 weeks until she finishes her Hajj and Umrah, because she's not all alone there. She is committed with a group. She has a ticket, she has international flight, she has so many major restrictions that doesn't give her the freedom. So the answer would be for local women, no, don't take birth control. You have your period on, just wait until you clear and just come back to Mecca and do your Hajj. If it doesn't clear this year, then you just need to do it, as long as you do it, because it's allowed to you. You know, you're allowed to go to Arafah, you're allowed to do Muzdalifah, you're allowed to do Mina, you're allowed, even when you have your period on. The only thing that you're not allowed to do is to do tawafu al-ifada, and that is a pillar. What does she do? You just need to go home, relax for 2 weeks until it clears. You get yourself into your ihram again, go back to Mecca, because it's just half an hour drive or 1 hour drive, and you do tawaf al-ifada. Again, very easy for a local woman to do, but that's not for an international, travel women. That is almost come to be impossible. With that, the majority of the current scholars have shifted to actually adopt the opinion of it is absolutely okay, because of the absolute legitimacy of having that to be taken. Now, when it pertains to Ramadan, the answers are not as unified. Again, I gave you that long answer because of also Ramadan. Now they differ because of that. They say Ramadan is not like Hajj. Ramadan comes every year, and she has her period on, she has her period on. She misses 1 week, she misses 1 week, she misses 2 weeks, she misses 2 weeks. Khalas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that, and He prescribed that upon our women. So she just needs to go along with it, and she does not need to disrupt her monthly cycle. Because, and alhamdulillah, all my sisters know that way better than myself, that taking birth control comes with its consequences and with its side effects and what have you. So just to avoid having a period during Ramadan, it might disrupt her monthly cycle for many months to come. So we don't want to do that. So the answer for Hajj and Umrah is different than the answer for Ramadan. So on Ramadan, they're not as unified, and a good number of them say no, it shouldn't be taken, and some of them say yeah, there is no harm. I personally take the opinion of no issue, none whatsoever, going to Umrah and Hajj, and I don't adopt the same opinion for Ramadan. For Ramadan, I would say just stay your course and just fast. If the period comes, the period comes. That's it, inshallah. You have the exact same ajr and no problem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to give you a break. Allah wants to give you a break. So don't feel guilty and don't feel messed out. So that's the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted, and it could be made up later on, inshallah, during winter time when it's easier, inshallah. I think, inshallah, the other question that I have is, after this class is finished, are there plans to continue fiqh classes with other subjects? Inshallah, if so, I am in. Yes, inshallah. That's Ya Rab. Just make dua for me, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give me the strength and the commitment. Wallahi, I love to do that. And I especially for my dear sisters and brothers who are committed. And I keep emphasizing on sisters because that's the true fact. You know, most of our classes are mainly attended by our sisters. They're more dedicated, more committed. And to be honest with you, I'm just going to be very frank with you. I'm happy to do so. You know why? Because, in my opinion, nowadays, the absolute integral part of a society is the mother. You know, honestly, fathers are way too busy. They're just out there too busy with this life challenges, you know, doing from work to work, two shifts to many other obligations, and they're not really putting a lot of time with their children. So honestly, it is our poor, you know, mothers. They're struggling because many burdens on them. They're acting as mothers and you know, as housewives, as servants, as they're doing everything. They're doing the teaching, the education, the shopping, the walking, the taking to doctors appointments and what have you. So they're being so committed to it, alhamdulillah. And I see the only one that really has the time to teach family, to teach children, is the mother, with few here and there with the father. So if we have the choice, I would definitely emphasize that if we have a choice between the mother and the father, who would be educated? If both, that would be great. But if only one, then by all means, hands down to me, that I would just go with the mother because she spends way more time with her children than the father. So she passes on that knowledge to her children. So inshallah, the intention is to continue. I just need your dua for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give me the strength, because dealing with fiqh classes is very, very, very time consuming. Very time consuming. What I'm summarizing for you is really a wealth of knowledge that needs to be read. And take it for a fact, no matter who I am and what certificate I carry, unless, of course, I'm one of those, which I'm not, but one of those like outstanding photographic memory imams that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala you know, gave them such a gift. I'm not that person. So which means that, and I'm not being humble about it, which means it's no different than memorizing the Quran. There is no hafiz that memorizes the Quran once and khalas, it's memorized for the rest of his life. No, it has to be retained, it has to be reviewed, it has to, same thing with fiqh. No matter how many times we study, we just have to go back and read it again and again to refresh. You know, it's many details. So there is no encyclopedia, there is really no computer chip in our minds that really memorizes all that, that I would just, you know, get it on with a snap of a finger and remember it. No, so it has, I have to go to many books. We have to put a lot of summary to it. So I am flattered. I am happy to do so, but I do need your commitment and your support. So what I mean by that, I would love to do that. But like if I have 10 sisters, like since the beginning of this series, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. But it would be very difficult if we have like 50 interested like brothers and sisters, and then I invest all the time in it, and then it starts dropping, like many things starts dropping until I get one and two or two. Not to belittle the one and two, but it's just the time of investment that is put is really, really was designed to serve 50 people, in order for those 50 people to be vocal to many others in society. That was the goal of investing all these hours. But to invest all these hours for one and two, it's not like it's not worth it. It's just not the smart investment. Why? Because if that's the case from the beginning, all I need to do, I would select or identify, or those one and two would just come to me and say, can we dedicate our time with you? And the time that I would invest to put slides, whatever, it would not be a fraction of that, because I'm not going to go with slides and reviewing. With one and two, I can go just one and two, and that would be so quick. We can just read together. Okay, you understand? Okay, this is what this means. and we can fly with it. But to be committed to a large group and then all of a sudden the large group drops, then it becomes not a very smart commitment. That's one. Second, I'm a human being as well, so it just it just turns off a person to commit for another series and a third series, because I'm going to see like, okay, well, every time I commit, I have a high peak of hyped up students, and all of a sudden they start losing interest and dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. So by all means, I'm going to leave it up to you for this circle, for the committed brothers and sisters in this circle. If inshallah ta'ala that is something that you want to do, you can express your interest during maybe toward the end of Ramadan, when we are about to finish the series of the rulings of Ramadan as well, which is something that I inshallah will share with you as I promised you. After I finish the tahara and purification, before we go into salah, we put inshallah a hold on that, get you very familiar with Ramadan and fasting and the rules that pertains to it, pertains to the last 10 days of Ramadan, pertains to Zakatul Fitr, pertains to Salatul Eid. So it makes you also a knowledgeable person, because that's very, very heavily needed. I want you to be a scholar in your own household. So all these questions that come to you, please save me. Don't say, well, go ask the Imam, because the Imam has like tons and tons of other questions are coming to him, and my inbox is never ending. So I will still take it, but that would be a great help, that instead of sending that child or that daughter or that son or that husband or that friend or that sister or that brother my way, you become my student and you answer on my behalf. And I give you the full authority. After testing you, I'm giving you the full authority that I feel comfortable now, that I give you the ijazah, I give you the clearance. You're not, it's not an official ijazah from a university or anything. You're not going to be hired with it, but you feel very comfortable that I got the okay from my teacher to answer with the answers that I learned from him. So somebody comes and asks you a question that you are very well versed on now. You got it, and you studied it, and you're being very honest about it, and you're giving the answer as you studied it, then you just pass it on to your family members or to your circle, and you would, inshallah ta'ala, teach others. And we reach out to many, many outer circles than just our close circles. And at the end, you save me time. And that would be very, very appreciated, to be honest with you, inshallah. I'm sorry today we took long, but again, I appreciate your dedications and commitment. That would answer all our questions. Inshallah, the plan tomorrow to Wednesday to finish all the slides pertaining to the last rulings on purifications, getting yourself ready to fly with Salah ruling. But before we fly with Salah, I want you to fly with fasting, because we are in the month of Ramadan. I want you to know all the rulings, inshallah ta'ala. And that is something that is from the habit of Prophet ﷺ. He would tap on any opportunity or a seasonal time of the year, like it's a season where it's Ramadan, it's Hajj, it's Umrah, it's Eid. So he would talk about those rulings and would teach them, because it pertains to something that is currently going on. With that, inshallah ta'ala, I'll let you go today. Jazakumullah khair, barakallahu feekum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all. Ya Allah, Allahumma ameen. I really make dua for all of you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you fiqh of deen. Allahumma ameen. As Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to give that dua to the Sahaba. Allahumma faqihhum fi din. Allahumma faqihhum fi din. Allahumma faqihhum fi din. اللهم أرهم الحق حقا وارزقهم اتباعه وأرهم الباطل باطلا وارزقهم اجتنابه اللهم يا رب العالمين اجعلنا من الذين يسمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خير, بارك الله فيكم إن شاء الله. I'll let you go and see you tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.